Is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 68. Tonight, I have an old friend, special guest, very special guest. Tonight, I'm speaking with Chris Trembley, the drummer from Ookla, the old late 90s band. Super stoked to talk to him. He was Skateboard extraordinaire. He also now is making beats, so he's a beat maker. Some dope beats being laid down by him. I'm going to grab him right now. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
How's that audio? Is that all right?
Yeah, I can hear you good. There you go. Sweet. What's happening, man? It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has, man. Not too much. Sorry about the raspy voice. I've been laid up here for a couple of days, pretty sick. But yeah, I was looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me. Especially, it's been so long, and I feel like Ukulele doesn't get enough shine. Like a lot of people don't really know about Ukulele if they weren't from that era. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just talking about
or New Hampshire, right?
yeah. So usually when I start these talks, I usually ask what first got you into punk and hardcore music, and what were you listening to before you kind of found hardcore?
Yeah. I guess what got me into it was Bulldog, who's the guitarist in the band, right? We were playing music together, and just when we were in 7th grade, 6th grade, probably just playing some music, and then he was listening to a lot of Green Day and Rancid and stuff like that, which was kind of well known, but kind of just feeding off of that and learning some of that music in those songs, and it kind of got me going into further down into more obscure bands and stuff like that. But that's kind of it, man. My dad is really the reason that I got into music, and he played guitar, and he was in the band, cover band, and he always wanted me to play guitar, but I couldn't figure it out. I tried for years, couldn't figure it out. And he's like, all right, you can hit things, so here's a drum set, you know what I mean? So he got me a drum set, and it was just from there, it was just nonstop, just playing music.
What age was that when you first picked up the drumsticks?
I probably 6th or 7th grade, right off the bat, just straight into it with Bulldog, just playing music. So I never really had just that, just learning the drums thing. It was he actually taught me a lot too, because he knew how to play the drums.
Yeah.
So but yeah, probably 6th or 7th grade, I think. And I lived in this little apartment in Fremont, and had neighbors upstairs, and I'm sure they loved it when I was just banging on the drums all night, yeah, it's funny to think back at that stuff, but they didn't complain. They were cool with it, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
What was the first hardcore bands that you kind of liked when you first heard hardcore?
Yeah, this would be kind of funny, I guess. I think Downset was someone that I got into at the time, because they had some of that sort of hip hop vibe to it in parts.
Yep.
And I guess from there, it was mostly, it was hard to find, because we were such a small little community where I was at. It was really hard to find music, and especially back then. Yeah. It's real hard to find stuff that was harder to dig for. So I was mostly, I guess borderline sort of hardcore music, I guess, would be Deftones and stuff like that. It was kind of got me into that heavier stuff, Pantera and all that.
Yeah.
So, but it was not, I don't consider that really hardcore, but it was it was distorted, and it had some energy to it,
Yeah, definitely. When I first met you guys, especially Bulldog and Wallace and those guys, and Steve, Earth Crisis, it seemed was big for those guys at that time.
Yeah. Earth Crisis was what we all grasped onto, when we were we first found out about them, yeah, and saw them play a bunch of times, and got into that whole straight edge thing, and kind of just I guess going down that rabbit hole, and then from that too, it was like Victory Records, you know, and then you find all the other bands that are on that, like Snapcase. I think Brothers Keeper was like a huge influence back in the day. Bloodlit was another band that I really liked. But yeah.
Now, do you still listen to that music here and there, or is it kind of like that's kind of like in the past and you don't really like delve into
I
that
listen
too
to so much music right now. Like I'm all over the place. I'll listen to like jazz and then hip hop, and I'll go into some metal and like death metal, and just like Dillinger Escape Plan. Still, like no matter what, I can listen to that and be like hyped on it just because it's like it's so technical. Like it's just crazy. So I listen to everything. I try to, like, a lot of times the music that I end up listening to is kind of based on the mood that I'm in, or like that mood that I kind of want to like put myself into, because it does have a huge influence over that.
Yeah.
So I find myself like leaning more towards like mellower sort of music these days. But it is like it's that contrast also between the mellow stuff and the heavy stuff. I just love it. And
Yeah,
even when we were writing music back in the day, it was like that too. It was like, here's like an acoustic part that's super quiet, and we're just going to go into like the heaviest thing that you could imagine, like right after it. It's like that contrast.
yeah,
It's like, I think that's super important to music for sure.
yeah, and that's what made, I think, Ookla very unique back then. Was there was elements of all kinds of things. I mean, there was like maracas in the
Yeah,
music, and like bongos, and like all kinds
yeah,
of different elements in it. But it was just so brutal and chaotic as well. Almost like the beginning of, like, I'm not saying you guys created mathcore, but it's almost technical, like mathcore is like the genre now. You know what I mean?
yeah. That was the thing when we were writing music, was always like, how can we do this different? You know, like how can we write the structure different than other people are doing? And like, and I think all of us really like the challenge of that, like, you know, changes. And I know nothing about like, as far as, you know, like technical part of writing music and doing all that stuff. Reading music, I don't know how to do any of it, but I loved like the crazy time signatures, and like it'd be like, you know, why don't we do a change on a 3 instead of a 4? You know what I mean? Just to like
Yeah,
mess with people, I guess, you know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? So we would always do that stuff. And, you know, I remember there was one time that we were writing the song, and we had all the parts like written out on a piece of paper, and we cut up like the pieces of the paper and just kind of threw them down. It was this one segment of a song, and however it landed, that's like how we played it, right?
yeah,
And from there, we always played it like that. But in my head, it was like the craziest, like how you gonna memorize that? Like
yeah.
it was like the weirdest thing, but it ended up being kind of cool. It was like a unique, you know, sort of thing. But yeah, I guess it's different when you're playing it and trying to like memorize where you're at when you're playing stuff like that, where it's not like straightforward.
Yeah, true, true.
But
Now, I don't know if this is correct or not, but did you start playing with Fault before Fault became Fault? Like, did you, like, I heard something like you might have played a little bit with some of those guys, and then it kind of turned into Ookla the Mock?
yeah, I did. I played with Fault for a little bit, and I can't remember if they were already. I feel like there was already songs that were. I believe there were songs that were written already, and I was trying, like maybe a couple songs, and I was trying to learn them. But I played with Fault for a little while, and that was super fun too. Like with Chris Flanagan, right? Like just like
Yeah,
is just all over the place, like all that stuff, and Kevin, and and then it kind of like went into Ookla from there. And to be honest with you, I can't remember exactly how all that transitioned at that time. I know
yeah,
Tim came in and played drums for them and crushed
yeah,
it with those guys. It was awesome to like hear them and play along with them. And I was in a band before that with a couple of people. I can't even
Well,
really remember the name of it. You know, like before Fault.
oh, wasn't it Chaotic Youth was the name before it was Fault?
No, so that was before me then, if that was it. But it was like a whole separate band. But it's kind of what introduced me, I think, to those guys. Is like we
Yeah,
met up and played music one time through Josh, who played guitar.
yeah, Josh Beveridge, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I can't remember the name of the band we were in before that. My friend Gorman sang. I just can't remember.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I kind of remember that. Now that you say Gorman sang, yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
remember that now. That's right.
I can't think of the name. Brothers
Did you
Keeper or
guys
something like that. I don't know.
did you guys ever like record anything in that band, or was it kind of just like a
Nah,
basement recording?
it was yeah, maybe if that, like maybe in
Yeah,
like a little like a 4-track recording or something like that. I
yeah,
know Josh had some of that equipment lying around. But yeah, I know we had stickers. You
yeah,
know, that's like I think that's as
yeah.
far as we went. We had stickers.
Yeah. Now,
But
when you first started playing in that band, was that the first real band you played in? And did you actually play shows with that band?
I don't think we played any shows. But before that, I played music with Chris Bulldog and Steve Janvrin,
Yeah,
and we did like cover songs, right? And
yeah,
like played, we played like Battle of the Bands in like
yeah,
middle school or something like that. And I remember one we did. I think we were in 8th grade, and they did an assembly so we could like play music. So like the whole school was in the gym, and then we like played a set, which is kind of crazy to think
yeah,
about. And we played like Rage Against the Machine and like
yeah.
stuff like that, and a couple of like original songs that were terrible. But
Right.
yeah, that I guess that I mean we played a little bit there, but it was like kind of like it wasn't like shows or whatever, It was just like the first time being in front of people, I guess, and playing music.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Was Steve singing in that band? Is that who was doing the
yeah,
singing in that band?
yeah, Steve. I feel like Bulldog sang a little bit too. Uh, yeah, Iron Cross or something, I think is what it was. It was like terrible. But
Yeah,
when you're a little kid and you're banging around on instruments and just like having a good time, that's how you do it. That's
yeah,
I guess how you like learn that stuff.
yeah. Where did Wallace come into the fold when you guys met Wallace?
Yeah, like we had been playing and we went to school with him, like we knew him from school and stuff like that, and he played bass and he was really into like Green Day and that sort of stuff when we were playing that.
Yeah,
And just like jamming out, like kids just jamming out playing music. And eventually when we were in Ookla, we were like, we're looking for a bassist or whatever.
yeah,
And we're like, dude, Wallace can do it. And he jumped in there and crushed it. Like, it's funny, like I get a real kick out of looking at some of the old pictures because it's like, like half of us, we're like 15 years old probably, right?
yeah,
And like, just like, and then you got like Adam and Max and Pete, and it was just funny, like the age difference, but it was just, I don't know, it worked, like when we started playing, it just all kind of like came together.
yeah. It definitely worked. I mean, yeah. I mean, like Adam, Max, and Pete they were like, 20, maybe early 20s back then.
Yeah.
And like before Ookla the Mock became Ookla the Mock, though, the name was Solomon Grundy.
Solomon Grundy, yeah.
So speaking of Solomon Grundy, how did you get together with Max and Adam and Pete? I know you probably knew Pete kind of from the Fault guys, but how did you meet Max and Adam, and how did you guys decide to become a band?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't remember. I don't even remember. It was just playing music with people. And then it ended up like coming into what it was, and I honestly don't remember. Like there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like a blur back then, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I just know like when I first started playing music with Pete, that was like amazing. Like when that dude started like just playing guitar and coming up with all these crazy riffs, and he's like, "What do you got to match that?" I'm just like,
yeah,
"Oh hell yeah!" Like I was so on board with it because it was crazy. Like it made no sense at all. I'd have to sit there and like stare at his fingers while he's playing for like 10 minutes and be like, "All right, let's see what I can come up with."
yeah,
Like. But that was the challenge of it. It was cool. And obviously Pete's energy was like
yeah,
unbeatable. That shit it was just crazy.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Max and Adam put on a show too, as well.
Yeah, those guys would be up there, end up beating each other up, and Pete would be just like throwing his guitar around and, just chaos. Like, and that's what I loved that, like the amount of chaos that would happen when we played a show was like the best. I loved
Yeah,
it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there was so many shows that I obviously I was super good friends with Adam and Max and Pete,
Yeah.
and we always used to go to practice at your mom's house
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just chill out, party a little down there and
Oh yeah.
like watch practice and you guys would all work on stuff like that, and then we'd go to all the shows around here and stuff like that, and it was
Yeah.
just such a great time. And seeing those guys live, seeing you live in Ookla it was a spectacle for some people because, like you said, like Pete would be hitting people with the guitar,
Oh yeah.
kicking Max and Adam. They would be punching Pete in the face.
Yeah.
Like those two, Adam and Max would kind of go at it a little bit. Like it was just pure chaos. And
Yeah.
I talked to Lex from As the Sun Sets and Daughters a while back, and he always remembers seeing Ookla the Mock, and he talks about it all the time. And we go back and forth, and he said that, like, you guys were, like, an inspiration for what As the Sun Sets was trying to do because, like, kind of As the Sun Sets kind of got a little chaotic like that and started, like, whipping the guitars around and, like, kind of, punching and kicking and kind of, it was he really draws, like, a sweet inspiration from you guys, which is really nice. I mean, Daughters now is fucking huge now. And
Yeah. Yeah. And it was one of those, it was a thing too, where it's like, I think it was just the music, like the music and the energy from all of it. It's just what it was. Like, that's just how it came out. It wasn't like, hey, let's plan this thing. Like, nothing was ever planned. It was just fucking chaos. And
Yeah.
I loved it. Like, and like my favorite part about playing shows was like right before we played. And it's just like, oh, they don't know what's about to happen. And like, you get into it, and I'm always looking out from getting hit from someone. I'm playing the drums. I can't go anywhere. I'm looking for like something to hit me in the face or whatever, and like just looking out and seeing. I've seen Pete punch someone in the audience, like someone like just watching the show in the face, and then they end up pushing him, like just like, and he's still trying to play, like.
yeah, like he never missed a beat. That's for sure. I remember he did. You remember Sully? He hit Sully in the head with the guitar at Save and Sound, and Sully got up on stage and punched him square in the face, and Pete didn't miss a lick. He just kept playing, and like, Pete was something else.
He loved it.
Yeah, he did love it.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I know, like, the name Solomon Grundy and Ookla the Mock. What was the reason? I know Adam and Max kind of wanted to change the name, but do you remember why you guys changed the name from Solomon Grundy to Ookla the Mock? I know I was always with those guys, and we were brainstorming, and I would help them out, I was giving them all these weird names, and I think you guys all settled on, like, some fucked up name that I had, and then same thing with Ookla the Mock. They were like, oh, that sounds cool, and then you guys all agreed on that. But what was the reason why you guys name changed?
I don't know. I feel like it was just one of those things. Like it just happened for some reason. I don't know. Maybe there was a band with the same name. But yeah, I don't know. I was just like, they wanted to change the name, and I was just like, somewhat just like in the background, like do whatever you guys want to do. Like I'm down for whatever. Like they were all like, and you too, the influence they had on them was like creative and that sort of stuff, and I never really questioned it. It was like, let's do it, change the name or whatever. I know at one point, like I know there is another band called Ookla the Mock, which is like they're like a Star Trek cover band or some shit. I don't even know. And that was always like a thing, like like these guys. We might have sent them a couple of notes, I think, at one point, but but it was what it was. But no. Yeah, a lot of that stuff, like, and again, too, it was like a lot of that was so long ago, and it was like a time of my life was kind of a blur as well. Like a lot of the details, like the name change and stuff like that, I don't really remember exactly why it happened.
Yeah.
But,
it's crazy, too, to think about, like, how many bands blew up from back then in that small little circle, because, like talking about Javier, Wes, Wes went on to American Nightmare, which is like huge, and then Ryan from Life Passed On, like Trap Them became really huge, and Lex was kind of in that Lex, John, those guys from As the Sun Sets started like huge. Now it's crazy, like that small circle of New England bands kind of just exploded and really turned into like something special in that scene. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people take it for granted what we were about back then, you know what I mean? And what it was, our scene was very small, but like so tight and like so many amazing good bands back then.
Yeah, absolutely. The Northeast was just like killer. Like in New Hampshire was like there was a couple of like spots like Safe and Sound where like shows were just like crazy. Like bands would come through and they'd be like, damn, like some real good stuff came through. And Zoots in Portland. But yeah, the Northeast just had like so many good bands coming out through here, and like it was every weekend. We'd play a show every weekend. It would be like, oh hell yeah! Like and when you're playing with a band that you're like hyped on, like you're like, oh, we're gonna play a show with like Converge or Cave In or whatever. Like, that was always super exciting, and like Candaria was like my favorite band of all time back then. Like Candaria is like, like they just did so much that was so different. So whenever they came up, like I would try to see them for sure, like from New York. And it was kind of like, the Boston scene, Syracuse, New York had like a different sort of scene going on, like New York City, like the stuff that was going on down there. But there was totally a different vibe to what was happening to like in the Northeast, like Boston, New Hampshire area.
Yeah, definitely. I always speak about that, like the small venues that had so many good shows, like seeing Earth Crisis at Cafe Savoy, or
Cafe Savoy.
Yeah, in Manchester, and also Cafe Eclipse in Concord also used to have shows there too as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the Brew House, which turned into like the UFI Coffee House, and then it went to Exit 23 in Haverhill. They started to have shows in the beginning too as well. So there was like places happening all over the place.
Absolutely. Sure. And they were grimy, like it was all grimy. It was awesome. Like the living room, the living room in Providence. I remember going like to that place and like just being like, like, I don't know. I just like the whole feel of it. It was just like, it was what it should have been for what was happening. It was good. And
when you, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
When Life Sentence kind of, got on your radar, how did that all happen? Like, do you remember, or was it Max and Adam that kind of,
Max and Matt, those guys handled everything as far as like that goes. They always were reaching out to people and trying to get like, promotion, like trying to get something going, you know what I mean? So they had reached out to them, and then we ended up working with Life Sentence.
Yeah, the guy that ran Life Sentence was Dan, right? His name was Dan.
Dan Gump, yeah.
Yeah, Dan Gump from Excessive Force and then Decontaminate, right?
Yeah, and like before, and that was the other thing too, when they were like, it's the dude from Excessive Force. Excessive Force was another band when I first got into hardcore that I was like, I loved just like the sound of the drums.
Yeah.
Because they had like it was like back when you put those metal clinkers on your bass pedal.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
On the drum itself, so when you hit it, it like snaps or whatever.
Yeah.
The first time I heard that was with those guys, and like I just fell in love with that sound too, and like in their music. I know it's like it's kind of funny. I think sometimes thinking about being on Life Sentence, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted to talk about that just a little bit because like. Did they honestly, like, they thought you guys were a straight edge band, right?
Yeah, well, I think so. I guess the question never came up. But, like, yeah. Some of us were.
Yeah, it was almost cut in half from straight edge to, like a little bit of partying and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Like, it's funny, like, being on a straight edge label and like playing a Halloween show, and Max and Adam are dressed up as nuns and monks and like on mushrooms and shit. It's like, it's just funny to think back at some of that stuff. But yeah, I guess it just never was questioned. Yeah. And I don't want to say anything too to like make anything weird, I guess.
No, I know. Yeah, it's just a kind of like a funny story because they were the ones that had like, Life Sentence had Torn Apart, Focal Point, Aftershock, 18 Visions was on there for a little while, Trip Hammer, Overcome, which I think you played with Trip Hammer, and did you guys play with Focal Point too on that tour? Or I know it was a Grimlock.
It was with Grimlock, and we met up with the bands I remember playing with was like Harvest in like Ohio, like Toledo, Ohio, or something like that, and like Overcast. We met up with Overcast in California, and played a show there. But yeah, the other bands that we played with, it was just I can't remember a lot of the ones that we met across the country. But like that was a crazy experience too. Like just like here, get in the van and go across the country. I was like, I don't know, a freshman or a sophomore. Like I was in high school, like super young. Just like I'm just gonna go on tour across the country, and like it was awesome. Like it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, there was. Who was the youngest one in the band?
I think it would be Jay, like Wallace.
Yeah. And when you guys went on tour, like his dad, was it his dad and Bulldog's dad like went too?
Yeah. His dad, I think Jay's dad flew out and met us halfway.
Yeah.
Bulldog's dad like was driving the van.
Yeah.
One of the vans. I think we had two vans.
Yeah, I think
one was like the getting high van, and the other one was like playing shows van, I guess, like being good straight edge fan. But yeah, no, it was a cool experience. It's funny, like I remember like meeting Grimlock. We met them at like a mall or something like that.
Yeah.
And like just like at a food court, like the first time meeting them, like, all right, here we go, like go on this tour and play some shows or whatever. And like the second day into it, we were in Ohio, and like that singer, I can't remember his name, but the singer was just like, we were in the middle of this park, broad daylight, right? And there was like some sort of water thing, like a shower or something like that.
Yeah.
Dude got completely naked and was just like showering, right? In front of like everyone. There's people around and everything. The cops show up and they're like, yeah, you can't do that. Like, just like, oh, what did we get ourselves into with this? Like, it was interesting. It was an interesting dynamic too between everyone. Super fun. Yeah.
Now that tour, that kicked off in New England though, right? What was the first show that you guys played? Was it in like Western Mass that you guys played first and then kind of went across?
Yeah, I feel like we met up with them in Worcester somewhere, and then we went from there. We played a show out that way.
Yeah.
And then we hit the road from there. And I think our next stop, we might have played a show in New York, and then went to Ohio.
Yeah. I remember Adam telling me that Toledo, I think you guys played Toledo, and he was like, brother, like Toledo is the biggest shithole. He's like,
it's the worst.
In, like, the most sketchy place, right?
Till this day, I tell people that. I'm like, oh, what's the worst city you ever been to? And they say something like, nah, Toledo, Ohio. Like, hands down, it's probably the worst city. But yeah, it was a really fun trip. Like, I remember being out in Salt Lake City too, where we met Dan from the record label and like the people out there, and it was like at the time Salt Lake was like super hard line straight edge scene going on. Yeah. And one of those guys swears that he saw me eat a piece of pizza with pepperoni on it. So, and he's vegan or whatever, so I don't know. I think they might have made that up, but
and the funny thing is too, like Max, Adam, and Pete, they never really like hid anything. You know what I mean? It was just like they were who they were, and you know what I mean. Even though like people have that perception of Ukulele being a straight edge band, it was like those three guys just kind of like just kept doing what they were doing and never kind of thought anything of it. You know what I mean? And that was the purity of those guys. You know what I mean? That they like, especially back then, a lot of bands had two lead singers too, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And with Ukulele, it definitely worked. I mean, they fed off each other's vocal style so well. I thought, you know what I mean? You would get the lowness of Max and then the like high energy of Adam, and it just works so well. You know what I mean? And when you guys had that unreleased stuff that you worked on, which like when I first heard it, I was like, well, obviously I saw it in practice a bunch of times too, but like when I heard it recorded it was at Zing Studios, right?
Yeah.
I was blown away. I was like, holy shit. And then like shortly after you guys like kind of broke up after that. So it's just a shame that unreleased stuff didn't get put out somewhere. And like I wish that somebody would like get a hold of it and just like maybe make like, you know, everybody's so high on cassette tapes right now, which is very weird to me because I don't have a tape player, and everybody's buying fucking cassettes now, which is like the strangest thing. But like maybe somebody puts out a shitload of cassettes of that stuff because I feel like people should hear that stuff. I know it's on YouTube because I think somebody had put it on YouTube, but
no, we put so much energy into that album, like so much energy, and like it was something that I was super proud of. I know the other guys are really proud of it too, and it is a shame, you know, that it just went like unheard to a lot of people, and like except for like the tight knit like crew that we had around us, like they heard it and they heard it at shows and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the amount of energy that we put into writing that was like, and the thought too of like how the songs were structured and how they went into each other, you know, like just like. Yeah. I wish people could hear it for sure.
Yeah, and on like talking about that, it stood the test of time too because like I listen to it now. You could put that shit out right now, and people would be like, "Holy fuck!" Like this shit is so heavy and like so intricate and like has all kinds of structures like you said and stuff like that. It really is like, you know, it has stood the test of time. You can listen to it now, and it's just like, you know, sounds as amazing back then as it does now.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot. We mastered 3 of the songs, I think. So there's maybe 2 on the tail end of it that aren't mastered. So the mix isn't right on it and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, I mean, if someone could get that DAT tape, you know, and go from there, I would love to get my hands on that stuff and mix it out.
Yeah, I mean, who does actually have the DAT tape? Do you know, or does
anybody?
I
don't. Maybe the studio, maybe like where we recorded it at the time. I don't know.
Yeah. Because the Life Sentence album was recorded at West Sound Studios. I remember going there and helping you guys. I was me and Steve, and I forget couple other people were doing the Trailer Park Gang War vocals.
Yeah. That was the one in Londonderry, right? Where we recorded that one? Yeah.
West Sound Studios, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. I love that part too. You just hear everyone. And like seeing you at shows, and Steve was always there, Monkey was always there. There was like people that were always there at every show. And like when that part, like the sing along parts came up, we'd be like, all right, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it was always like
loved it.
Chaos.
Yeah.
well, like I met Steve because you know, I played in High School Sweethearts with Steve, and I met Steve first at your house. You know what I mean? And like me, Adam, and Max would always like fool around with him and, you know, razz him a little bit, just kidding around because we always liked Steve. You know what I mean? And then it's just so weird, like down the road. Right after Ookla had disbanded, I played with Bulldog and Wallace in Last House on the Left with Matt Moeller and Justin McPherson we did that short little demo, which then we kind of folded too without even really doing anything. And then I know Bulldog and Steve were doing a project called Passenger Westbound, maybe. It was kind of like an emo-ish type of thing. I don't know if you heard any of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I never heard it, no.
And from me living so close to Bulldog, I would go down there and watch those guys playing stuff, and then that kind of folded, and then Steve got into the band with Max, High School Sweethearts, with Josh Beveridge and Wayne Shore and Eric Eveleth, and then all of a sudden they wanted to Steve wanted to do the dynamic of 2 vocals too. So at first it was me and Max, and we did that demo, and then Max left the band, and then it was just me, Steve, Josh, and Eric, because Wayne had left too, because I forget, he had something going on, or I don't know if he was moving away or something, but we turned into like a 4-piece after that. So it was just kind of weird that Ookla like branched into so many other bands, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's how it goes. Like that energy doesn't disappear. Like it gets dispersed out throughout different things. And to see all that too, and like, you know, the network when those guys were playing, and like kind of the stuff that did come out of it, and like you guys with the high school sweethearts and all that, it was rad to like to see that it's still going. You know, like that stuff's kept going. You know, like, and you know, like a lot of that was like, I mean, I missed out on a lot of stuff, I think, because like the reason, like a big part of the reason that we ended up kind of not playing anymore is because I went out to California to like skateboard and stuff like that. So it was kind of like, but when I did that, I missed like everything that was happening back home, you know, like I missed like years and years of stuff that was happening. So I regret like missing a lot of that, especially the music stuff that was happening back east, you know?
Yeah, so with all your friends too, and I always have to mention Adam going on to Kanai, which turned into a pretty big band too. It was such a crushing band as well. And Max kind of, after he left High School Sweethearts, he did like a project called Shaniqua and the Skullfuckers. And he was in like a few other bands too, and that was always wild with you know, Max and stuff like that. Speaking of the Ookla guys, have you stayed in contact with any of those guys? I know I reached out to you to try to find Bulldog. He's kind of like off the map.
Yeah, I have no idea. Honestly, I haven't really talked to anyone in person in a real long time. You know, like, I don't know. I can't even think of the last time I saw any of the guys that were in the band, like, in person.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I ended up kind of going into this, like, secluded sort of zone in my life, I guess, where I didn't really talk to that many people, and I lost contact with a lot of old friends and stuff like that, and like the band is part of that too, you know.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, like I love all those dudes, like I care about all of them so much, and like all those memories, like I'll never, like, it might be blurry, but I remember like the big part of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, when you went, like, the first couple shows that Solomon Grundy played, like, do you remember those first shows? Were you kind of nervous? Because obviously you guys played with some pretty decent bands in the beginning, you know what I mean? And,
it's weird because nowadays, if I play the show, like I don't play in a band or anything anymore. I play the drums like every day by myself. Yeah. But I would be so nervous in front of playing, like if I had to play in front of people. Yeah. But back then, I never got nervous. It's weird. It was just like pure, like what we were doing. It wasn't like it was just what we did. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like there was no like nervousness really to it. Yeah.
Now, when you went to California to do skateboarding, I know you were always doing skateboarding when Ookla was happening too, because you know, we'd always talk about it and stuff like that. And you were going to competitions and doing. I remember you hurt yourself pretty bad, like back then too, as well.
Yeah.
But did you see any shows when you were out in California, or kind of you just were like focusing on skateboarding, and you were kind of like, all right, I'm taking a break from hardcore, like I just need to.
Yeah. Like, no, I didn't see any shows out there, and to be honest with you, I don't even know like what the scene would have been like there. I was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And you know, there's like kind of like there was like a punk scene, I guess, going on, but I wasn't involved in any of that stuff that was happening out that way.
Yeah.
It was mostly just like, it was just 24/7, like just skateboarding all day.
Yeah. But, now, do you still skateboard or?
Yeah, I do. Yep. Yeah, I don't know if I'll keep going until my body won't allow it, and then probably still try to keep going after that. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like therapeutic, you know, to do that. You get some of that energy out in music as well. Like, you got to keep doing it.
Yeah. Now, is there any fever in you to like go back and like nowadays and start like something heavy? Like, has anybody came to you and been like, hey, do you want to start a band? Or like, is that any interest for you where you would want to be in like a hardcore band or like, you know?
Oh, I'd be down for anything, to be honest with you. I've just been playing drums by myself. Like, I just like play weird stuff by myself for a couple of hours and just kind of zone out. But I haven't really played with like another musician for a long time. I would be totally game for that. I think it's funny because when I was out in California, I couldn't play the drums. It's not like,
Yeah.
you know, living in an apartment in the city, you can't really do it.
Yeah.
So I went for like, I think I probably went for about 8 years or so without playing the drums at all. And then once I started playing again, it was like I had a whole different style. Like,
yeah.
it's kind of weird how that happens, but every once in a while, like I'll get that urge to like, you know, just like blast beat or whatever, you know, like get back into it. I haven't had a double bass pedal in probably 15 years, so I'd have to pick up one of those.
Yeah.
But no, I honestly, when it comes to music, I'm down for whatever. I would love to play any sort of music at all.
Yeah.
Like I just love it.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask because like some people that aren't in bands now, you know, they're getting, you know, in their 30s and 40s. I always ask if there's like a fever still built inside where you would like to play like some, you know, like a heavier show or stuff like that. I mean, I was in, you know, small bands for 10 years after Ookla disbanded, and you know, I still have that fever, you know what I mean, to scream, but honestly, I don't think my body could handle like screaming.
Nah, I'm sure you'd be fine.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that doesn't. I don't think it goes away. It's always there. If you get a little taste of it too, like if you listen to something that's like, shit, I want to play that. Like if you hear like a guitar that's like layered, like 10 guitars layered on something, it's just as heavy as it gets.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you can't fight that sort of like urge. Like that's always going to be there.
With those flyers that I sent you in the DM, did you forget about a lot of those shows and you were like, oh shit?
I did totally, yeah. Because we played so many too. It's crazy to think about. It was like every weekend we were playing a show.
Yeah.
So we played a lot of shows, and I forgot about a lot of those. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good to go down memory lane. I wish I had saved all the flyers. I mean, for the most part, me and Adam like worked on all the flyers. He would print out the the words, and then I would go back and I would find a picture and like put them all together, and then I'd go to my work and I'd Xerox the fuck out of them all and like make a shit ton, and then I would like drive down to Newbury Comics or wherever, like Strawberries and Plasto and stuff like that, and just like poster them everywhere. Just to, you know, it was fun back then. It's kind of, you know, it's not like that nowadays because everything's, you know, through, you know, social media or something like that, you know what I mean? But back in the day, it was like super fun to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
it was. That's like as grassroots as it gets, you know. Like you're like, that's tactile. You're like sticking flyers on shit, throwing you know cassettes at people, like you know whatever. It was more of like a physical thing, you know, all of that.
Yeah. Do you remember the Sad? I was looking for the Sad Cafe flyer. That was probably one of the most craziest fucking shows I've ever been involved in. I think I broke my hand that night.
Yeah. We got banned, I think.
My hand, yeah, and like no moshing after that show. There was blood. There was blood all over the floor. There was broken chairs. There was that show was fucking complete chaos. And anybody that was there knows what the hell I'm talking about. But anybody that wasn't there, like that was like one of the fucking craziest shows I've ever been to. And it's crazy that it was in Plasto, New Hampshire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that was funny. They had a good sound system.
Yeah.
We destroyed a lot of shit, you know? And I think they might have recorded it too. There might be a recording of that.
I would love to see that. See, I don't have any recordings of that. See, that's the funny thing is a lot of people have, you know, flyers and recordings and stuff like that, but it's just like I wish people would bring it out so that we could like, look back and see how fucking awesome.
I think one of my favorite things that we did in Ookla, like as far as like a recording and a live thing goes, is we played at a radio station down in Lowell, Mass. And we recorded a set, and it was like it was all of our newer stuff that we were working on.
Yeah.
And it was just like a really cool experience. I just remember like, I don't know, we're all kind of weirdos, and like just I guess for some reason I think it must have been warm in there. Something, but for some reason I was just wearing boxers. It was the only thing I was wearing, and like playing drums through this like set. And there's got to be recordings of that somewhere. I know that there's something kicking around. And the best part was afterwards, like the DJ was like, "Oh, we interviewed with him or whatever." Yeah. And then he's like, "Yeah, you guys have any requests for music or whatever? And Max was like, yeah, can you play this? And he picked a song, and it was just all swears. And just to be a dick, you know, and the guy was like, he's like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, yeah. I vaguely remember that like listening to that too, because I remember the guy from the radio like kind of interviewing like some of you guys too. I
Yeah.
vaguely remember that, but it sounds very familiar. Did you sit like I was asking you before? You didn't save much from those days, huh?
I didn't. You know, it's funny because I kind of just like, my life went a totally different way, and I was like just kind of out, you know, on the other side of the country, and forgot about a lot of stuff that I had back home. My mom held on to some stuff,
Yeah.
just like, you know, it was in the house, so she kept it, you know,
Yeah.
like that flyer that I had showed you the other day. She brought that over the other day. She's like, oh, I found this. I'm like, oh, sick. Like,
Yeah, that is a
it's
big flyer.
cool.
I haven't seen that for a long, long time. It was cool
But
to see.
a lot of the stuff is just kind of like, it's just gone, unfortunately. And I'm not good at like holding on to stuff
Yeah.
like as I should, you know, stuff that like means a lot to me. I just kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't hold on to that sort of stuff, and then I
Yeah.
regret it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of the same way. It's like anything that high school sweethearts did, I don't have any of it. I don't
Yeah.
have the you know, the EP, the little freshman 15 EP that we made. Like I don't have that. I don't. We made shirts. I don't have a shirt. I
Yeah.
don't like.
Dude, we
Like
recorded like a bunch of songs right in my basement, right?
oh yeah,
With
yeah.
that. And like, I remember like, and I feel bad about that too, because I know you reached out to me to get those recordings, and the way that my setup was at the time, it was like such a pain in the ass
Yeah.
to get it out. It was, you know, it was like in the early 2000s, you're working with like weird hardware that's like,
Yeah, yeah.
so I kind of didn't, I knew how to like record and mix it, but like getting it out into
Yeah.
like a CD and shit like that, like I didn't know how to do it at the time. But I do remember it sounded sick though.
Yeah, it was like I said, those times back then were like just super fun to me. You know what I mean? And talking about tour too, like you guys didn't have your license.
No.
That why that you guys were like 15 when that tour happened, or maybe one of you guys was 16, but I think two of you guys were 15, and you might have been 16, but I think Bulldog.
Yeah, but I didn't have my license, so I waited to get my license because I was just like, I just didn't feel like doing it, I guess.
Yeah, so
But
none
yeah,
of you guys.
so like Wallace's dad would drive us around, Bulldog's dad, you know, and like throw stuff in Pete's car.
Yeah.
And whoever had, you know, we'd rent a van. Every once in a while we'd rent a van to go to a show, you know.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's funny. Like Wallace's dad was a trooper. That guy was
Yeah.
always there, you know, like
Yeah, yeah, he was super fun to like. He was such a nice guy too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like super, you know, proactive with the band too. You know, he
Yeah.
like anybody needs a ride or whatever. I remember like he would be like, "Oh, you need me to give you a ride or whatever," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm good, man, but thank you." Like he was just like a super nice guy.
Yeah, definitely. And he was a fan of Earth Crisis.
Oh,
He
yeah,
was into
that's
Earth
right.
Crisis.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Did you get swept up into that straight edge movement back then? I know Bulldog and Wallace and Steve was for a while.
Yeah.
Steve was a super, you know, straight edge guy.
I did, but it was like one of those things where it's like I bounced back and forth off of it, where it'd be like straight edge and then like smoking weed and then go back to straight edge and like, yeah, it was weird. It was kind of like, I don't know. I was all over the place, I guess, at the time with that stuff. And
Yeah.
like with a lot of that too, like I started all of that, like drugs and all that stuff when I was really young.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess like learned my lesson before. I guess I don't know. I guess I got that stuff out of the way at some point. But yeah, I was definitely into that straight edge scene, and it was kind of one of those things where it was like a cultive sort of thing where you get like drawn into that idea behind it. Yeah, I saw that with a lot, you know, like with a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't beating people up because they were doing drugs or whatever either. When I was straight edge, it was just kind of, I had X's on my hand and shit, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It was kind of like a weird time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's crazy. I was there too for a while. Like I was straight edge for a long time, and now like it's a weird term because like you said, you're 5 years sober now.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. I think that's
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Definitely. I'm on that same type of train too right now, and I don't think I'll ever look back. It's the best that I've ever felt, emotionally and physically. Obviously, I'm getting older, so like, you get the old guy aches and pains and stuff like that. But I'm a lot more happier than I was because I like when alcohol and drugs like 20 years ago, like I could say personally that I was like a fucking dickhead. You know what I mean? And now I think I've did a 360 totally and like turned around and been, now I look at life differently, I guess. And I'm married now and I have kids and you're a father as well. And so it puts life into perspective a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's doing it for the right reasons, like sobriety, like doing it for yourself, for your own, your own sort of place that you want to be. It wasn't like, I think that was kind of the difference with the straight edge thing. It was like, you're doing it because it was part of like a scene almost, I guess back then, some of it.
Yeah.
But when it's like, I don't know. I mean, you probably know the same shit. You got to learn lessons kind of the hard way sometimes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's hard. But getting sober is probably the best thing that I've ever done in my life. It's definitely the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, it's that clarity that keeps you sober. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I won't look back, and there's no reason for me to really look back either. I mean, I just went on vacation to the Bahamas, and everybody's drinking drinks, and like it's tough. You get the swim up bar, and I'm like, no, I'll just stick with my like bottled water, and like, and I had a blast there. You know what I mean? So
just enjoy it for what it is. For like the actual genuine experience of what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you about your photography and what got you into that. I mean, you've taken some like amazing pictures. Anybody that knows you has seen the pictures that you take. What kind of got you into that, and how's it going?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's always kind of been there in my mind. It was like photography. I've always really liked it. I liked the idea of it, and when I kind of lost myself, I guess, after with skateboarding and that stuff all fell apart and I started drinking a lot and I kind of lost who I was. And I just had like one day I was like, like I liked hiking. It was something that like kept me going, and things like that. And I was like, I ended up getting hurt. So I was like, and I was just stuck at my house. I was like, well, I'm going to start doing photography. I want to like learn this. And I think it was like, it's cause it's such a challenge.
Yeah.
At first, like the idea of like learning all this, the different settings you have to use and different like compositions and things like that, like things to look for. Like I really like that challenge.
Yeah.
And it's kind of turned into something else now. And now it's like my outlet for sure that I have. But it's like also a reason for me to like get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And like when I do photography, I rarely go out and just shoot, like for an hour or two.
Yeah.
I fully immerse myself. Like I'll go out and I'll spend the night sleeping like in the mountains or somewhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I want to get a photo and just like really being part of the environment and kind of like getting a feel for all that stuff. And it's been really gratifying and helpful. And it's given me so many like crazy experiences too. Like I've seen so much stuff that like if I didn't have a reason to be there, like I would have missed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Super therapeutic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's like I'm by myself. I'm just doing my thing, like, and you zone out and just really appreciate like what's happening around you. And it's like capturing what's happening. Like I like that. I like capturing like those special moments.
Now, do you ever think about like, say going to like a live show and taking pictures too, or is it kind of basically just like, like wilderness and the outdoors type of photography?
No, I would do all that stuff. It all interests me for sure. I haven't done it. I have some equipment to do like portrait and like live music stuff.
Yeah.
I just haven't really had a chance to use a lot of it. But all that interests me. Every aspect of it, really.
Yeah. Nice. So usually before I end these talks, I usually do a rapid fire. I know sometimes it's a little, if you don't know, just be like, I don't know, but I'll shoot off the first couple of questions. My first one that I always ask is your all-time favorite New England punk or hardcore band all time for you.
New England.
From New England.
Overcast.
That's a good one. My second one, what was the first punk hardcore show you attended? That you went to like a hardcore show and saw your first one. Do you remember?
I don't know.
Now, speaking of like old shows, did you go to, you remember Stormfront, the band Stormfront back then? With Scott from Year of Our Lord?
Yeah.
And it was in the Atkinson Community Center, I think, and it was like Stormfront, Nail Bomb, Barrett played.
Nail Bomb.
I forget who else, but Scott had a cheetah suit with like ears and a tail when they played with Stormfront because back then there was like super vegan hardcore. Were you at that show in Atkinson or?
I honestly vaguely remember like some craziness like that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember like the details of the show like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny the bands that like I forgot about, you know what I mean? Like looking at flyers and stuff like that. Nail Bomb, I always like mention Nail Bomb. People are like, holy shit! Like, and I always mention like Rare Form because not a lot of people know Rare Form or Non-Compost Mentis.
That's why I was just thinking of that because I remember seeing Non-Compost Mentis probably at the Safe and Sound, and it's the first time I've ever seen like that was like a fucking production. Like those dudes came out and they had like masks on, right?
Yeah.
They're all wearing orange.
Yeah,
like
they had
it was
like
just like
suits.
Yeah, dude. I remember that, and then they were like brutal too. It was awesome.
Yeah.
That was an awesome show.
Yeah, you guys played in Concord with them too, though. I think like it was you guys, Fault. Who else? I can't think of who else it was. It might have been Piecemeal. I don't know, but I know you guys played at Cafe Eclipse with Non-Compost too, as well as Safe and Sound.
Yeah. No, those guys. I remember like that. Like kind of changed, kind of like a thinking too. It was like, damn, that was sick. Like just totally different.
Yeah, those guys are sick.
Yeah, there's a couple of bands that do that. Like they'll like have something else that's going on. Like I remember Creation is Crucifixion. Like in between their songs, they would like it was like a bunch of conspiracy. Like they were just like talk like conspiracy shit. It was like it was weird. I liked it though. It was different, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I talked to three of those guys like a few weeks ago, and I also talked to Scott from Zayo, who was in Creation in the beginning too. So it's been fun talking to those guys too, because like I said, I've been trying to talk to people that I just admire and like really love their music and their art and stuff like that. So it's just been super fun to talk to like all the people from back in the day.
Right. And I'm sure they all appreciate it too. You know what I mean? Like being able to share those stories and stuff. Because a lot of this stuff just kind of goes out into the ether. You know, like there's so many crazy things that happen, so many stories to tell on all that.
Yeah, it's that's why I'm kind of glad I'm documenting this, just so people can watch like later on down the road that might fall onto an old band. Or I also talk to like a lot of like newer bands too, just because I keep my foot in the door for the scene, because there's a bunch of new great bands too as well. So I kind of delve into a little old stuff and I get into a little new stuff, just to make a full circle of music.
And it's easier to keep it now because it's not on VHS like it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Or 8mm. Like,
right.
I have a fucking ton of 8mm cassettes that I can't do shit with.
No.
All right, my next question: What was your all-time favorite show you played in Ookla, Lamont?
The Halloween show at Safe and Sound.
And I remember that show. Do you remember who else played that show?
Uh, I can't. I just remember how fucking crazy it was. Just because
Yeah.
like those guys are all on shrooms and dressed up like and it was like one of those like nights that was just like the energy was just crazy. I
Yeah.
know we played. There's another show that sticks out in my mind, and I don't know when it was, but it was when they cut the power on us in the middle of our set.
Oh yeah.
And that was at Safe and Sound too. It was so brutal. Shit was just getting out of control. They cut the power.
Yeah, Doug.
That one sticks out.
Yeah, Doug was the guy. Wasn't that his name? Doug from Safe and Sound. I think he's the one. Like,
Yeah.
the funny thing about Safe and Sound was he would kick you out for being too violent, but then he would feel bad and let you back in like 10 minutes later. He's like,
Yeah,
you cooled
exactly.
off now, like you cooled off, you can go back in. I'm like, oh wow, this is like sick, you know?
And then best friends again, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It was such fun times back then. My next question: what was your all-time favorite hardcore punk show you attended that you didn't play, that you kind of went to, and like you were talking about Candaria? Was that maybe one of them, or
Absolutely. Yeah. Candaria at Safe and Sound was one. And like just being able to watch that drummer do his thing, it was like Ken, I can't think of his last name. But he's like insane. Like just watching the way he was playing, and he was doing all this like crazy jazz stuff,
yeah,
like in the middle of like these songs that are just like smashing, and then they'll fucking go into like a jazz or Latin music sort of thing. Like that was awesome. That's one that sticks out. I do like there's another one that's right behind it as far as like just like something I didn't expect. It was the first time I saw Dillinger Escape Plan.
yeah,
And it was like up in some like attic of a building in Worcester, and fucking just completely blown away with those guys. Like
yeah.
it was just like hearing that like the energy and the technical shit they were doing was just like mind blowing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love Dillinger. My next question: I'm a big movie guy, so I always ask this. What was the last movie you watched?
That I watched fully.
Yes.
Airplane. Because that's like the only movie that I watched, dude. I love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
My next question: all-time favorite horror movie for you?
Yeah, I don't have one. I don't watch horror movies.
No. All right. That's
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
also, I'm a big hip hop guy too, especially like '90s boom bap is my style. I've been to like a billion hip hop shows, and I've recorded like a ton of them too. If you've been listening to hip hop, what have you been listening to lately?
Lately I've been listening to like Slum Village and like some Nas, like that new Nas album's like real good. Surprisingly, it was really good.
Yeah.
But I listen to a lot of older hip hop too, like '90s stuff.
Yeah.
I always go back to it, but I mostly like I'll listen to like the producers, like Pete Rock or like Ninth Wonder, and I'll see the stuff that or like Jay Dilla, like all his stuff.
Yeah.
I'll just go and like listen to like whatever they did, because those guys were masters or are masters, besides Dilla, like passed away. But just, yeah. And hip hop ties into like hardcore too. Like I feel like there's always
definitely.
that like, there was always kind of that little mix in there of that, like that vibe.
Definitely. Speaking of producers, I got to see Pete Rock versus DJ Premier battle, like down at the Middle East. I saw it twice actually, and
Nice.
that was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big Pete Rock and DJ Premier fan, so that was fun. I also saw Madlib spin records down there as well. So
Sick.
yeah, it's I'm huge into hip hop too. I listen as much as I listen to hardcore and screamo and stuff like that. I still listen to hip hop every single day. It's always been part of my life.
Yeah.
And my final question is, what was your favorite song to play live when you were in Ookla? Like, what was the song that you were like, yeah, I can't wait to play the song? Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, there was like one of the songs off the album that we never released, so it doesn't have a name. Maybe it's on a piece of paper somewhere. I can't remember the name. But it just like started off, like real quiet with like just like a little quiet guitar riff and quiet drums, and it just goes into like it snaps directly into like a blast beat with just like a wall of energy. Like I love that one. I love playing that one because it catches people off guard. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, like that's. I mean, that's what I mean. It was almost like catching lightning in a bottle with you guys, like when you made music, because it just felt so right. You know what I mean? Like the bless your little black heart, like what was the first song? The first song was Killing Song. Was that the first
Yeah.
song
Yep.
off that? That like that hits right away. You know what I mean? And it's like it just I don't know. Like if anybody hasn't heard Ookla, you know what I mean? Just like find it on Discogs, get a CD, or like hit up YouTube and listen to it, because, like I said, it was very special to me, and this talk with you has been very special to me too. Just going back and like I said, I remember hanging out downstairs with you guys practicing all the time, and
Yeah.
hanging upstairs, and having a couple drinks and stuff like that. So it's always been like super cool between me and you and everybody in Ookla, and it's just been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny too, because Tim Meehan was the first talk I had, and like I was always like, I gotta get Chris, or I gotta get Max, or I gotta get somebody from Ookla to talk, and you've been like pretty much the most like your social media is easy to find, you know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
I said, Bulldog and Wallace, which I would love to talk to those guys, because we're in Last House on the Left, but they're off the face of the earth. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody's talked to them, you know what I mean? I know Steve hasn't talked to either one of them either, so.
No, I know. At one point, I heard Bulldog went to like Japan or South Korea or something like that. I think to like teach English.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't heard or seen any from either of those dudes. If I do, I will send them your way.
Yeah. I've talked to Max here and there just a little bit, but yeah, it's like I said, thank you so much for doing this again. I don't want to hold you up too long. I know you're not feeling the greatest, and I'll let you get back to recovering and stuff like that. But I want to say, congratulations on 5 years being sober, and another
thank
thing
you.
is just like everything you did in Ookla, it's like I love, and I super appreciate you, my friend, for doing this.
Right on. Thank you.
All right, man. Let's stay in touch. Like I said, if I find any more stuff that I find from Ookla, I'll send it your way, and vice versa. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, right on.
All right, man. Thank you, Chris. I'll talk to you soon.
Later.
All right, brother.